Welcome back, Prince lovers. Another Prince lesson. Yes. This one brought to you by CB Thug Angel and Tabitha Grace. Sweet, painful sin. A question of you. Fantastic. What a great suggestion. Because once again, like Prince, this song doesn't follow any standard pop sensibilities. It doesn't go intro, verse, chorus, solo, rap, chorus, out. It's like a poem. It's got this fantastic, slow, sultry groove, and then it's got this beautiful melody over it. Just stunning melody, which is what Prince builds his guitar solo around. And we're going to have a look at that guitar solo today. But as per the request from these guys, I've gone back to a live clip from 1990 where Prince plays a particularly tasty little solo on this one. So look, if you learn the solo that I'm teaching here today, you will definitely be able to adapt it to the solo that's on the studio recording. But that's not all, because we're also going to have some more loop pedal fun. Because the outro of this song, it's like a Prince invention fest. It's like this long drawn out jam where there's all these different melodies that weave in and out and play over each other and intertwine. It's wonderful. So I'm going to set up the groove and play those parts over the top. So we all love a loop pedal session. If you want to grab the tabs over at SoundSlice and get your loop pedal out, you can join in the fun. All right, but before we get underway, as always, please thumb one in softly for me and throw some support my way, guys. Thank you. If you're here today, you may have watched one of my previous videos on Prince, which was about his simplicity, his minimalism. And this is another great example of that. It's a mind-blowing example because when you hear the start of this song for the first time, it's like a boom, boom, ba, like a slow 12/8 blues. It's like that sort of, hang on, let me just make sure you can see my fingers here. And there's definitely guitar and keyboards doing patterns like bluesy guitar staples. But then the melody comes in and it just takes us by surprise. It's like the loveliest surprise. We think the song's probably going to have major thirds in there, but once that melody hits, it's all about the minor. Now the chord progression gets quite complex throughout the part of the song that Prince sings over and then plays this guitar solo over. But I'll talk about that as we go. Let's get into this thing. I started up here in the 7th position B minor pentatonic, and he plays that same melody, but he usually slides into it. We're going straight up to the F sharp on the A string, 9th fret. 9th fret on the D string, that's a B. So we've got our 6, 7 on the G string, sliding up to the 11th, also on the G string. So that melody. And he's doing hammer-ons and slides into that note. Then he repeats that again, but this time it's got little hammer-ons at the start. The third time, the first 4 notes are the same, but we're hammering onto the 9th fret of the G string. And the chord changes at this point too. The first, it's over the B minor. All of a sudden we're over a G chord, but it's a G6 because that melody note, that E, is a 6th in G. And then there's a quick F#7 to take us back to the B minor. Now, Prince does a really clever lick over that F#7. He goes, so he does a little triplet because he's on the E. So he goes back down the pentatonic scale. So that's D, B, A, but then hammers onto the A sharp, which is in the F#7 chord. And then back up the B minor scale. B, 9th fret, C sharp to D, 6 to 7. Then he starts the whole phrase again. This time, on this live version, this is where the first point of real difference, apart from some slight phrasing things. He moves up to 11th position and does 32nd note hammer-ons between the 11th and 14th fret. And there's 12 of those for each beat of the song. So 1, 2, 3. Now, I will point out that live version from 1990 that's on YouTube that I got this from is slower. He slowed the groove down by probably almost 7 or 8 BPM slower. So after Prince does that for like 2.5 beats, then he goes a bend, a release, back to the 13th fret. Now this is really clever as well because up until this point we've been hearing B minor and a G chord, but this is a G sharp note. Another little Prince surprise for us. So then we're up to the G chord again. Same lick as before. This time he does a little, almost a legato lick, a pull off 9/7 on the G string, same thing 9/7 on the D string. Then he bends that 9th fret, that E note, up to an F sharp note. So then Prince does the same thing again, but extends it even further onto the A string. But instead of a pull off, this time we've got a slide from 9 to 7. Then he bends it, pulling the string downwards twice, so that he lands on that F sharp note on beat 1 of the next bar. Now this phrase is a little bit tricky. It's quite pacey. Let's see if I can demo it somehow with the good old metronome. So if each of those clicks is an 8th note, 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. All right. Anyway, I had to do that bit a few times to get it in time. Then the chords change to an E minor. But this series of chords, to me, it sounds like a chord and then another chord comes in over the top. So to me, the E minor, then it sounds like it's got an A7 over it. Then it goes to a D major 7, but then it sounds like it's got an E major over it, a C major 7 with a D major over it, a G major 7 or G major 9. Anyway, let's not get too carried away. So we're up to the E minor part of the song, and Prince moves up to the 10th position, extension of the B minor pentatonic scale, and plays. So he's bending the 12th fret, then a quick triplet by going, picking the bent string, release, pull off, and then so 12-10, 12-10. And then he repeats that lick slightly differently. A little quick back to the 12 on the end of it. Then he does a great long wailing bend that lasts for pretty much a bar. But as it's ringing, he lets that come down. He's up on stage, he's got those big amps, he's got all that sustain there. So then it sounds like Prince does a couple of hammer-ons from the 10th to the 12th on the B string. But the first one you can hear, he's got that D note, the 10th on the first string in there as well. So it's like... Then he does a harmony to the vocal melody that's happening on the keys behind him over the G chord. He plays... So we're going 10, 9... then a couple of hammers and pulls from 7 to 9, then sliding back to the 5th fret, back to the 7, sliding back to the 9. He does that twice. Then there's a very nice little syncopated melody that happens there. He's playing the A note, the 5th fret on the E string, hammering from the 5th to the 7th on the B string, doing the same on the E string, then repeats part of that. So 5 on the first string, 5 to 7 on the second string. So I'm going to play through that passage for you. And then the backing goes to a C major 7 again, and then to an F sharp 7 to take us back to the start. So over the C major 7, we've got so Prince is just sliding into the 8th fret on the B string, back to the 7th, back to the 8th, then a quick hammer on to start it again. Then bending the 9th fret on the G string to sound like the 11th. Then he does another lightning fast little run of 30-second notes with his pull-offs. 9-7 on the G string, 9-7 on the D string, 9-7 with a slide on the A string. Hovers on that note twice as long as the others. It's a 16th note rather than a 32nd. Pulls off to the 5th fret on the A string and then hammers on and slides at the same time. So we go from 7 to 9 for beat 1 of the next bar. Okay, so all of that together, let's try and play that. 2, 3. Yeah, it's a tricky one to phrase. Then Prince has a bar of dancing where he does those claps. And then there's B. And then he bends, and it sounds distinctly like he bends that A note, the 10th fret on the B string. Now, anyone who watches my channel regularly, that was a feature in last week, clip 2 weeks ago, the Terry Kath Chicago video. It's such a clever little trick. Instead of just doing your standard blues bend, bending up a full step, we bend half a step, then the rest of the way. So it sounds like, that's what it sounds like Prince does at the end of this solo, and then holds that note with a lot of vibrato before he slides out of it and does a huge dance around his props, and that's it. So let's have a bit of fun with the loop pedal. Let's get the outro to this thing worked up.